Attention! It is time to change the channel. Live from Philadelphia, it's Mr. Pritchard's Art Room!
What? What? We're live now? Hey, we're live! How you doing? Sorry about that. I didn't know we were live. Something wrong with the screen. Let's fix that. That's better. Now something wrong with my voice.
What's wrong with my voice? I sound funny on the screen. Can we fix that?
That sounds better. Hope everybody's doing well. Something interesting today. I'm doing a little bit of a refresh lesson. This last week we've been studying visual artists within the Harlem Renaissance. Before that we were studying poetry, dance, music. Well, this last week we've been doing visual artists, painters, drawers, sculptors, photographers. And this is a little bit of a refresh in case you were absent or if you want to study the artist again. I'll have the slides up on this showing. Also, at the ending, I'm going to have a silent film from the time based on the artist. Silent films are interesting. Sometimes they would include music, we'll say. This one doesn't have any music. It does occasionally break to have words on the screen. Talk about technology. Now these phones, not only do you have voice, video, they also film in color. It's amazing how technology has changed. And everyone can carry them. Back in the day, film cameras, they were hard to come by. Now, the way we're going to be studying this is the idea from Du Bois at the start of the Harlem Renaissance, using art as a propaganda tool to fight against Jim Crow era. So the first couple slides has some Jim Crow era things in it. And we're going to see how the Harlem Renaissance artists are fighting against that to show something different, to give people a mind-opening experience that they might not know because they're so used to seeing Jim Crow era art, films. So we're going to see how the Harlem Renaissance artists are fighting against that. Then we'll get into a couple slides based on what's going on in a lot of the artists in Europe using African motifs. And this starts happening in the Harlem Renaissance too, that artists want to show where they came from, show their culture. So we have artists using art as propaganda. We have artists showing culture and where they came from in Africa. There's also a few artists in this group that want to show technique, not necessarily fighting as much in propaganda to show what's really going on in life, to show real life. Yet some artists want to show almost more like a European style. We see a little bit of pointillism in the artwork, and it's a little different. So I often wonder what style all of the students will prefer. Would you prefer art that's used as propaganda to change people's minds and get them thinking differently? Or do you prefer art just showing technique and just for pleasure? Well, let's get started on the slideshow. Now, these first couple slides are very difficult to study. On one side, we have racist Jim Crow era artwork, and on the other side, we have a Harlem Renaissance artist fighting against this to show something different than the stereotype, show real life. Again, one side very racist stereotype of a child, the other side showing children in real life. To some people, they might not ever seen this because they're so used to the racist Jim Crow era artwork. One side a racist toy, one side a Harlem Renaissance statue of Lift Every Voice and Sing. And the last one is based on a racist movie, A Birth of a Nation. The opposite side is a Harlem Renaissance artist showing real history. Now, we're going to get into some of the European artists using Africa motifs within their artwork. The artists in Harlem and in America started seeing this too and going, well, we could do this too. This is our culture. And that starts coming in the artwork. This last one is a European artist, Van Gogh, and a Harlem Renaissance artist with the same theme of the postman. Let's get into the artist now from the Harlem Renaissance time. This is William H. Johnson. Very playful art, brightly used color. The figures look almost a little cartoony. William Scott is very similar to the art coming out of Europe. The paintings almost look like Van Gogh landscapes. William Artist's sculptures are beautiful, look as realistic as can be. Sergeant Johnson, again, these sculptures and these artwork are fighting against stereotypes of what people thought Afro-American individuals look like. Richard Barr statues, unbelievable. Now, Ramir Bearden is one of my favorite artists. Started off mostly doing painting, went into doing collage later on, showing life. Richard Dempsey, to me, very similar to some of the European artists, showing some different styles and cubism. This is Richard Nugent. Great drawings, great artwork. Rex Corling, showing life. Now again, one of the ideas with the idea of propaganda within the Harlem Renaissance is showing what life was really like. Palmer Hayden, again, showing life. Here's a city view of life. On the other side, the artist is in the painting. This is Nancy Prophet, great sculptor. Going back a little bit into culture too, showing life. Metaphor, beautiful artwork. Again, going back, showing a little bit of Egyptian artwork. Showing what's going on in life. Mae Jackson, not only doing sculpting of a person, but doing a landscape. Now that landscape has a little bit of a feel from Europe also. Margaret Burroughs, beautiful artwork showing life. This is Marvin Johnson. Now, we showed a few pieces of artwork earlier, yet again, showing life, showing some soldiers during the war. We have a little bit of the African culture in the last one too. It reminded me of what the Europeans were copying. This is Lois Jones. Lois Jones we showed earlier with the history from Egypt going into life today with drama and art. Jacob Lawrence. These two Jacob Lawrence pictures to me, very much the Great Migration. Now we got the train tracks there showing that too. A couple more Jacob Lawrences showing life. Seems like life in the big city. We got even a library in there too. A lot of bright colors used. This is Laura Waring. We studied Laura Waring before, doing a lot of portraits. The big difference with these portraits as opposed to the Jim Crow artwork, these are showing real life. John Hardwick showing landscapes mostly in these. James Wells, these are beautiful prints. Couple photographers now. This is James Allen. This is a photograph of a version of Mary. And the next photograph we studied before, this is the artist and photographer James Van Der Zee. These are just stunning images of a dancer, musician, and a soldier. This is Henry Tanner. A lot of Tanner's paintings actually live in Philadelphia, showing life. Columbus Knox from Philadelphia also showing life. The image on the far left of the person playing trumpet on the patio seems like a common scene today. Horace Pippin we studied before in a previous lesson. I included Horace Pippin here again too. This is Henry Barnhill. Beautiful artwork. A lot of landscape here and a train landscape in a sense. Interesting stuff. Hale Woodruff. These are beautiful historic scenes telling stories. Georgette Seabrook, gigantic mural. The shame of this mural is it seemed a little damaged over time. This is Elizabeth Callett. This is a printmaker we have studied before, showing what's going on today and in history. Beautiful printmaker. This is Ezra Condor, beautiful artist. I love the portrait on the left of the woman in the landscape scene. This is Betsy Gray's Rounder. That's Carver. On the left side, we have a high school named after Carver here in Philadelphia. Charles Aston. We have studied Charles Aston before, yet I included these two images from history and a migration artwork. Augusta Savage we have studied before too. Also, we studied the print on the far right of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Beautiful sculptor artist showing life. Archibald Motley, showing life again. Beautiful scenes taken from life. A dinner party, a dance, a religious service. This is Alan Crite. One of these images were before, but just showing day-to-day life in the city. This is Alan Freeland. Alan Freeland is one of the artists that like to study more in technique. The one on the bottom right reminds me of a pointillism landscape. This is Albert Smith. These are beautiful prints. A wonderful style showing history and showing life. Aaron Douglas. Now, Aaron Douglas is a main artist in the Harlem Renaissance. Now we get to the silent movie. Now let's add a little bit of music to it. A lot of these silent movies, when one would go to the theaters, they might have a piano player in the theater playing along. Now, the shame of it is there is no voices in it. It's silent. The technology yet did not have voice yet, just like the movie is purely in black and white. The movie's about 15 minutes long, and it's documenting artists from the time. It's wonderful that we have this record in moving pictures and not just a still photograph or the artwork itself. It's wonderful to see the artist. And the movie documents several of the artists from the time. Now, the movie starts off with an artist painting outside, yet the first part of the movie also shows how some of the artists from the time had to find other work to support themselves before they got famous. Later on in the movie basically is several of the artists working most likely in their studios, from a sculptor to a painter to a photographer. Would have been kind of neat at this section where there's a train being worked on if we had sounds of a train. Yet again, it's a silent movie. Not too much consideration for people that cannot see. This looks like a taxi cab driving job. Interesting. There's someone working, cleaning up, sewing. Typing. Well, that's a old school typewriter right there. Someone working, looks like the phone lines. Secretarial work, it looks like here. That is a lot of mailboxes. Looks like 100 mailboxes on the wall. Here's someone working, serving food. I wonder if that's on a train. And again, the first part here is showing different jobs that artists had to support themselves until they can support themselves just on art alone. And here's someone working, cleaning. They're going to be cleaning some windows. One of the things I thought was interesting is the correlation between some of the jobs, like working here with the sponge and stuff and some of the tools, and how that kind of goes into sculpting, like some of the same ideas with tools and things. So that made me think of that, about how some of the tools used in other jobs go right into making art. Now we're getting into some of the sculpting and stuff. There's an artist sculpting. Looks like they're putting lots of clay onto wire forms to make a person. Just keep piling it up. Here they're scraping away clay to make indentations where the eye will go into a hunk of clay for a face. Here we have an artist drawing. A little bit of painting for a realistic portrait of a person. Well, that looks like Aaron Douglas painting there. Mixing up some chemistry there. It looks like for photography. And here we got a printmaker and a sculptor. Looks like carving away on a piece of wood. And a little bit of ink. Imagine having a pen like that before, that you had to dip in the ink every time you wanted to write or draw. There's a palette full of paint. There's that sponge. Like I was saying earlier, with cleaning windows, they had a sponge. And here it is in sculpting. So some of those same tools, I wonder. Now we're getting into the artist. This is Richard Barth. And the last part of the movie is going to break down several of the artists. Now, Richard Barth is a sculptor. And again, here we are sculpting onto a piece of metal to make a person. Looks like using clay and squeezing it together to make a form. Almost like if you take bread and squeeze it together to make something. Realistic people, though, being made. Smoothing it out together, too, and everything. Here's a funny thought. Imagine trying to make a sculpture like that out of chewing gum, just pushing it together. Rolling up that like clay, like almost like making a snake. That sculpture looks unbelievably real. This is a smaller one. It's a person holding a pose. I wonder if that person in the sculpture is a dancer. Looks like the gentleman in the sculpture is holding a pose like a ballet dancer. Here's our next artist, the photographer, James Lattimore Allen. He's got a photography studio here with lights and everything. It's a big camera, about the size of a shoebox. Trying to freeze moments in time via photography. Here it seems like the artist is mixing up chemicals to develop the photographs. Nowadays, it's all done digitally with a computer. It doesn't need any of the chemistry. But before that, you had to be a part scientist to work in photography, I'll tell you. Showing a customer, it seems like, some of the photographs taken. Moving on to the next artist. So this is Aaron Douglas painting at an easel. Very steady hand. Now we're going to the other artist, Palmer Hayden, outside painting. It's kind of funny, he's talking to someone and we don't have a clue what they're saying because it's a silent movie. Next artist. This is the sculptor now, Augusta Savage. Well, that is a realistic sculpture of that animal. Seems like clay again, going around wire form, I imagine. Smoothing out all the wrinkles in it too, trying to get it nice and smooth and put together, getting all the cracks out of the clay. Carving some of it too. Taking care of some of the excess clay in it. Oh, here's a piece already wrapped up to protect it from the air so that it doesn't dry too quick. That's a realistic face here that the artist is going to make. They superimposed a picture on top. I imagine this is the person it's based off of. Looks just like the person, just made out of clay. Or I wonder if that's a different substance. Now again, a lot of the artists in the Harlem Renaissance are showing what life really is. They're fighting against that Jim Crow stereotype of what a person looks like in the black community. What Augusta Savage is doing here is really, really amazing, showing a realistic person, not showing that racist stereotype from Jim Crow artwork. That's it. So until next time, everyone, be safe and stay well and be nice to each other.